Hello friends and welcome. Patch 7.37b came out earlier today. We have played a couple games and now I'm here to share some first impressions, which I know you're wondering, the Iron Talon video is still good to go. Whew. I always get worried anytime a patch comes out right after I release a video, but that is still okay. So you can keep using the Iron Talon as an alternative to the Philosopher's Stone if you want. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you better go check out that video. But this patch, nothing too crazy. It's a lot of small buffs and nerfs to the best and worst heroes, but I'll walk you through it real quick. Item changes, as you can see, nothing too major here. Gleipnir, active radius, a little smaller, not a big deal. Kaya will not stack with the other Kaya upgrades, which I actually didn't even know it did because I never get to build Kaya. But apparently it was. I'm guessing like Storm Spirits, Leshracs, maybe some people were doing that. But it doesn't work anymore, and this won't really impact like 99% of you. Ironwood Tree got a nerf to the cast range from 800 to 400, which is kind of a lot. It really only impacts like Timbersaw, Hoodwink, Wind Ranger. There might be some others. I don't know, maybe Mars was doing it with the spear. That's actually a cool idea. I don't think I've ever seen him do that. A couple heroes could use this mechanic. For most, it didn't really matter. Sometimes you could plant a tree in front of someone to block their path. Oh my god, it's probably just bug fixes. Believe it or not, that was not 7.37c hours after the B patch came out, so I'm guessing just some bug fixes. No surprise, that always happens. Neutral items, I think we wrapped up on that. If we didn't, whatever, it's not that. Most heroes won't care about that. Okay, hero changes. We can zoom through a lot of these because it's like I said, pretty minor. Abaddon actually has a really good win rate in pubs. I don't see him very much in my games, but his win rate's really high, and I think the late game, like insane healing with Aghanims, was still really good. So they're nerfing a lot of this. Support Abaddon, maybe a bit of a nerf to Mist Coil in the laning stage, and then some of the late game talents all nerfed. But the damage from Curse of Avernus buffed a little bit. So maybe your aggressive laning potential as support Abaddon or core Abaddon could be better here. Batrider, I think they're trying to make him more of a core. So the base strength is down by 3, which is pretty significant. But then they increase the strength gain by 0.4, which means by level 8, you're already good to go on this base strength nerf. So for support Batrider, that's not that bad to hit. But core Batrider will hit it even faster, and then you'll have even more strength than before. So that seems good. And then there's a 25 talent nerf, which you shouldn't really play for, but if you do get there, you know, buffed. I don't know. I'm surprised by this, but his win rate is actually quite low. He's a bit of a tricky hero, so it's usually low. So I don't think they need to try to get him to like 50%, but buffing his win rate from, I think it's like 45 right now, a few percentage points higher is usually a good spot for a hero that's kind of tricky like Batrider. So maybe just more strength in the mid to late game will be it. Beastmaster, I think he's still good. I'm surprised he wasn't nerfed. His facet is being buffed. It's the facet no one takes. So I think the other facet, the one that's popular, plus the Aghanims build, is still pretty viable. So he's a hard hero as well, though. I think he doesn't do as well in pubs as he does in pro scenes. But I think we're still going to see Beastmaster in the pro scene. Clockwork, you'll now get 75% of the mana back when you use Hookshot on an ally, which I'm pretty excited about because the lower cooldown was cool and all, but you ran out of mana so quickly. So they're going to refund the mana, which means you can actually spam it out. I think that's good. It now grants armor instead of a barrier, which I'm kind of iffy on. On one hand, Clockwork's innate ability, if you didn't know, gives you more spell damage based on your armor. So I guess you'll have that. But you don't usually care about damage as Clockwork that much. And 25 armor is a ton, so it's really good versus physical damage. But if you're not against physical damage, aka magic or pure damage, then this is a nerf to that. So Hook Up to me is becoming an anti-physical facet that you use to either protect allies or you have a bunch of melee heroes who are going in first, so you can repeatedly hookshot to them, and you all get physical damage versus, or armor versus physical damage. And if it's a magic damage lineup, then this isn't doing as much. But I mean, you still have low cooldown hookshot, so it might be okay. But yeah, I'm gonna try it out. We'll see. Maybe it's a lot of damage. Maybe there's like a core Clockwork build that can do this. Yeah, but core Clockwork wouldn't be hookshotting to allies. He goes in first. I don't know. See, that's where it's tricky. Death Prophet, Morning Ritual actually not changed. I thought that one was really good, and I thought they would nerf the numbers a little bit. Looks like it's here to stay for now, and actually her other facets are being buffed. So expect to see more Death Prophets in your game. I'm going to explore these a little bit potentially because Death Prophet is a hero that you can play support, but I haven't done it lately. Gonna try it out, see how it feels. Ember Spirit, one of the best win rates in the game. Immolation had a linger duration. I did not know that. I don't know what the linger duration was, but that would explain why in the last patch they tried to nerf Ember, but his win rate actually went up quite a lot. I didn't realize it had a linger duration, which means you could just walk by heroes and do damage, which I mean, like, yeah, when you're standing next to him, I thought that did damage. I didn't mean literally like, whoop, step next to him and now he burns for a second or two, or who knows how long that duration was. I hadn't noticed that. I think that's a very good nerf to this ability. Some other stuff is being nerfed on him as well, and I think that'll hurt the hero. I don't know how far he will drop, but the fact that it had linger is like crazy to me. Now, maybe it wasn't a lot. Maybe it was like a half-second linger, and it wasn't like that big of a deal, but I do think this hero needed nerfs. Hoodwink. So I know this says go nuts here. This is actually a nerf to tree bounce. So Scurry down here, we're going to do this in opposite order. Scurry is being nerfed. And going from this original duration, it's being shortened by about 1.5 seconds, not about, literally 1.5 seconds flat across all levels. If you take Go Nuts, you get to keep the original duration, which means Tree Bounce, this is now your new duration. Scurry, you get this. So buff to Go Nuts, except that actually it's what you had before. If you took this facet in 7.37, Tree Bounce is what is worse when you take that one. And Scurry, it is how you get out of situations, right? Especially if you had like 2 charges available to you. That was like 10 seconds of running through trees, extra speed, all that. Now it's going to be 7 seconds. That is going to make a difference in these fights. Even if this number seems small, it will matter in enough cases that it is a nerf to the hero. Huskar. So Burning Spear's duration is back to 9 seconds. They are reducing the max health burn percentage, but mathematically what it was 6 seconds before. So it was 6 seconds of 1% max HP burn, 6% max HP. Now it's 0.75 for 9 seconds, which is going to work itself out to 6.75% of your max HP per Burning Spear. And Burning Spears does like burning damage regardless, like 5, 10, 15, 20. So you're also getting 15, like at level 1, 5 burn damage, 5 burn damage for 3 extra seconds now, so 15 more damage. So essentially at level 1, let's say, Burning Spears from the last patch now does 0.75% more HP damage and 15 damage per spear. I am very, very interested in a support Huskar, but I don't know, guys. I'm just so tempted, but I don't know how it works, except that you just do a shitload of damage in the lane. Like, that's as far as my game plan is. Shitload of damage, armlet, push early. And this is where if I had teammates who were like, oh, I build stuns, we build auras, we like go off of this. If they focus the support Huskar, it's just support, right? But you know I'm going to get like sniper mid and like Ursa off lane, and everyone's going to go damage, and then it's not going to work, and they're going to flame the Huskar support pick. And it's like, guys, I first pick. It's not on me to do that, you know, like, but when I do the test in the lobbies, like, it is so much damage on Incendiary. It's crazy to me. I'm going to try it at some point once I feel brave enough. If any of you are braver than me, you can do it first and report back. Invoker, there's a small buff to Elitist, but he has a very big quality of life change here, which will also improve his ganks a lot. So you can now use Quas, Wex, Exort, and Invoke during Invis and while channeling, which is really just teleports. It's not that big of a deal for the teleports or the channeling, but for the Invis. So the thing is, like, you would Ghost Walk. Let's say like Ghost Walk and then have like EMP, Tornado, Cold Snap for your second spell. And you would queue up the orbs to be the second spell, Tornado, Cold Snap, Wex, or sorry, EMP, whatever. So you would pop out of Invis, use one spell, invoke, use the other spell, 2 spells on the gank. Now, because you can invoke without breaking the Invis, you can Ghost Walk, get your 2 spells, Cold Snap, Tornado, and then queue up the EMP so that after you use those 2 spells, you instantly invoke and cast a 3rd spell. So, big buff to the ganking potential of Invoker. Outside of that, these won't matter that much because outside of ganking, you're not usually just running around like Ghost Walking. Well, I guess that's not true. When you go around the map, you're kind of invis and you can set your spells, but I don't think it's as big of a deal in those cases where you're like walking to farm. So to me, this is a huge buff to the ganking of Quas-Wex Invoker, wow. Or late game, like Exort Invoker has made its way back to Quas-Wex. I think that's good. I also think this 15 talent is quite nice. If you didn't know, the Forged Spirits apply negative armor, but they actually have a mana cost per attack. So 2 Forged Spirits can only apply so much negative armor even as you improve their attack speed. But a 3rd Forged Spirit means you can now essentially get 50% more negative armor if you're assuming they're applying like all their negative armor at once. And if you're not applying that negative armor to something, then you can use them to scout. You can send 3 Forged Spirits across the map. So I like this change. I think it's good for the hero. Now, support Invoker, I don't know. People were asking about that. I feel these changes are much better for core Invoker. For example, there's a 15 talent. Are we even getting there as support Invoker until like 30 minutes into the game, right? Like, who knows? And then you only have like 3 spells to work with anyways, support Invoker, compared to core Invoker, who's got the level that has like all 9 spells, right? You only have so many levels on support Invoker. So at some point I'll try it, but I personally am not super convinced support Invoker is back with this. I think it's more of a core Invoker change. Jakiro Liquid Frost nerfed a little bit in the early levels. It ends up being the same. Oh shit. Guys, I just died in RuneScape. All right, I'm back to AFKing Gargoyles. What was I saying about Jakiro? Oh yeah, slight nerf. Mainly level 1, you'll see it ends up being the same at max level. This hurts his level 2 power spike where like QE did like 300 plus damage, which is crazy. It actually still does a lot of damage, but it's down by about like 30-ish. It kind of depends how many procs you get in there. But let's say like 30-ish damage. So it's still quite good as a level 2 timing, but just a bit worse than where it used to be. Magnus. Okay, Magnus is an interesting one. So solid core is now slow resistance instead of reducing the amount of forced movement. I still think this is a weird innate ability because Magnus, of all melee heroes, he's one of the ones that does not care as much about slows because he has skewer, which he just pushes through the slow, right? So I think it's a weird one, but it will still be good, right, in certain situations. I think it's much better than the forced movement one. So it's an upgrade. I still think it's kind of like meh. But the big thing here is that they're changing the way the level 15 talent works. So all stats per hero that you gain when you hit reverse polarity, it used to last for 15 seconds. It's now up to 20 seconds. That's nice. Now, when you hit reverse polarity twice, it stacks instead of refreshing, which means at 15, it could be 12 all stats per hero hit. Let's say you hit 3 heroes with an RP. So 36 stats. Great. In the late game, you pick up a refresher, you hit those 3 heroes, you refresh. At the end of it, you RP again. 72 stats for 20 seconds or a little less because it's like overlapping. Whatever. You get the idea. That's a lot of stats for a universal hero who then like whack cleaves and has got like bonus damage on stats. So that seems really good once you get to that like mid to late game. So I'm expecting to see Magnus at TI unless some of this stuff gets adjusted, or maybe this isn't as good as I think, but I mean, this seems pretty good. Mars is getting a buff to Victory Feast. I think this is nice, but I actually think the bigger buff is to his talents here. So they are swapping one of the talents. The level 20 talent, extra damage reduction, it's actually being moved to level 10. That seems really good. The other 10 talent is God's Rebuke Distance, which I mean is good, but when you want to tank up, when they have a ton of lineup, you can just get 10%, 5-ish% damage reduction at level 10. That tends to be really good. So I think that'll be quite nice for him. And then at level 20, it's minus 20 seconds on Arena of Blood cooldown, your ultimate. That'll also be a tough choice. 0.6 seconds Spear Stun, which is quite good, especially with the Shard. But, I mean, 70-second Arena, that's also really good. So this seems quite nice for Mars. I don't know which like talents will end up being the best, but I think this is overall good for him, and I'll let the Mars players figure that out. Morana buffs, they are trying to make core Morana a thing. So 2 base agility buff, Solar Flare, it reaches max values faster, 6 seconds instead of 8 seconds. They're doing some slight buffs to the damage, the finding radius of like the Starstorm, the Sacred Arrow Starstorm, or the Aghanims, all this stuff. So they want core Morana to be a thing. Support Morana, some of these are nice. I think Solar Flare is like, I don't know. We are kind of in this period of greedy position fours, so maybe it is okay. But Solar Flare seems better for core Morana because you're going to build more right-click items, and you get full value on Solar Flare for Morana, but your teammates get 50% of that. So it doesn't seem as good as a support facet. But what we might see is that if this does make core Morana viable, then in the competitive setting, you might see early Morana picks, and then you flex it. Like, oh, it could be core Solar Flare, could be support with the regular Moonlight Shadows. There we go. Monkey King is going to take longer to channel Primal Spring, and then Jingu Mastery, early damage, nerfed, making him less of a shut you down in the laning stage hero. A little bit of a buff in the late game. I don't think it'll make that big of a deal. I don't know if this is directly relevant because Monkey King, the reason he's broken is because of the facet that lets him jump around the trees super quickly. You'll notice that's not being changed here. So I'm not sure. In pubs, it doesn't work as well, but at the pro level, that rotation ability, the mass movement, really good. So I still expect to see Monkey King in the professional scene. In the pubs, this will probably be a little bit more impactful there. Small buff to Muerta, I think more aimed at core Muerta with the Ofrenda, but base armor and a small amount of mana saved. I mean, that's good for support Muerta. I'm gonna have to look at her numbers later to see where she's at compared to like when she was broken. But I mean, she's definitely a support who loves building Gleipnir, which is still seems kind of like the meta of like auras and Gleipnir on greedy 4 supports. Still seems pretty viable at a high level of play. So Muerta might slip her way back into that. Naga Siren, very interested in Naga support. Going to try it out. Deluge is now 4 seconds that you can cap someone's move speed to 225, which is a very sizable slow, and increase their or decrease their status resistance. So you get longer stuns, roots, silences against them. You use your ensnare, reel them in under the tower, pull them in, get them to tank towers, and then Deluge slow them as they try to walk out. I'm going to try it. I think it could be good. I saw someone do it as a position 4 in my game. Seemed okay. We did fall apart later. I don't think it was strictly the Naga. I think it was like a team draft, blah, 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 whatever. But I'm interested in it. It does look kind of promising. I'll let you guys know. PL. So his win rate was awful when they made the change. I think there were some bugs in it. It's been fixed. His win rate's still pretty bad. So now the main Phantom Lancer is going to get bonus damage. He buys an item and gives him 100 bonus damage. He gets all of that as base damage. His illusions get 65% of that. So it does sound good, but I still think someone needs to come up and popularize a different build for PL to make use of that, because his first few items are like Power Treads, Aghanims, Diffusal, Manta, like in some order. There is no bonus damage in that, which means none of this comes into play. Vlad's is sounding pretty promising. An Amplified Damage Rune, maybe a late game Daedalus, right? These are all sounding really good, but that's all like late game PL, and early game PL is still getting killed and rolled before he even reaches late game PL. So that's the part that I think is a little bit of a struggle, but I could be wrong. Maybe this is really good, or maybe someone will popularize a build that makes better use of this to get you through the early game and into the late game. I think this puck change is pretty big, so there's going to be a flat amount of health and mana per dodge, which before it was a percentage, 2%, and let's say you had like 600 health. That was 12 health you got back. So now you're getting a flat 20. That is a big amount in the early game. Now in the late game, yes, the percentage is going to be more, but it'll help you get through that laning stage, which is really big for Puck, who's like a pretty fragile hero. So huge. I don't know if the old one multiplied. Puck wasn't that popular, so I didn't know the exact details of the innate. If it didn't multiply before, fantastic. If it did, but now it also multiplies this flat amount that's new, then that's still good. But this seems really good. If you dodge a spell, if you go tank tower for a second, get a range creep to hit you, dodge all of that at once. I'm pretty sure it stacks. I actually didn't test it yet. Even if it doesn't stack, I still think this is really good for the laning stage. Support Puck? Maybe. We'll explore that. This seems interesting though. Snapfire, they're trying to push her more towards maxing QW. So Scatterblast is actually going to have a higher cooldown at level 1, which if you are doing a little shredder build like core Snapfires and then even support Snapfires, we're doing that build. Scatter Blast was 1 point wonder, so that hurts. If you're maxing Scatter Blast, you actually get rewarded. It is now lower in cooldown by 1 second. Fire Snap is going to do 5 more damage. Woo! But, you know, if you're maxing QW like the old build was, then it's better than before. Spit Out applies based on the Mortimer's Kisses, which I actually thought it always did. I didn't know that, but that'll also be a buff to her. I assume it's like improving. So you might see more QW Snapfire than just like the little Shredder builds. Sven Warcry, this is a nerf more to support Sven, but hurts core Sven a little bit. 5 more seconds on the cooldown to Warcry, which depending how long a team fight went, you know, you start with Warcry, you get another cast later on, you're not going to wait 5 more seconds, which could be the death of a teammate. They don't get that barrier in time. So I do think that's a meaningful nerf. I think you can still play support Sven if you really want to, but it's slowly dropping. Tinker, the one you're all wondering about probably. So 10 less heal at max level on repair bots. I think that's very reasonable. March of the Machines mana cost up by 10. Defense matrix up by 25 at max level. So I think this hero is still viable, but you have to be much more careful with your mana cost. This is something I noticed in the last patch, that there were phases as I'm like teleporting to lane, teleporting to team fights. I didn't have quite enough mana and I had to sit in the lane or like the fountain a little bit. These mana changes hurt that even more. I explored getting a bottle. It's tough because you have to bottle like so much. It adds so much to the brain, like mental space. I was not doing it properly. I know that. If I spent the time to do it, I could probably get there. I'm going to try not to. I still, like, I don't know where to slot it in right now. Like, oh, we're replacing Null Talisman. We're losing a lot of intelligence, max mana, things like that. And by losing max mana, the fountain is actually helping you less because it heals you based on max HP, max mana. So I don't know if I like bottle as an alternative to deal with these mana costs. I might just sit in the fountain like a little bit longer before teleporting out. I'm going to explore it more because I still think Tinker is perfectly viable, still very strong in pub games. I think this is a very deserved nerf, but I don't think he is dead. Tusk, getting a little bit of stun duration per ally and Snowball. I think that's quite nice. Talent stuns up, so adds more utility to Tusk. I think he's getting there. I think he's going to be pretty viable position 4. Ursa, some slight nerfs to Ursa, so he'll reach the same late game point, but it's harder to get there. And then his talents also got swapped around. So at 15, Earth Shock would apply would apply Fury Swipes 2 stacks, which I think is really good. They're moving that to level 20. So it's harder to get early kills as Ursa because it takes longer to build up Fury Swipes, it takes longer to do Roshan. At level 20, you know, kind of back to it, but that is, you know, it takes a while to get from 15 to 20. So I think pretty balanced nerfs to Ursa. Venomancer, Septic Shock. So you probably saw like the meme builds from Thompson, Wagamama, just like wrecking people with having enough debuffs. You like one shot. I don't know if it counts as one shot when you have like 8 Plague Wards also shooting, but like, you know, one comboed killed like heroes instantly. So their nerf to it is that things like Shiva's Guard, which used to count as 3, will only count as 1 debuff because it's a debuff per unique item / ability. You might still see the combos, but it's going to be harder to get to that point. I haven't done the math quite yet, but I think this is fair because it's not a very fun mechanic if you can be instantly killed at any point. You've experienced it at points with like Invis, Ricky's, PA crits, right? There should be a balance to it, not like a countdown timer. Like, oh yeah, if it gets to 60 minutes, yeah, then Venomancer he just kills everyone. That's just how it goes, you know, like that's not very balanced. So I do think this is deserved. I don't know how much it hurts yet, but I'll keep an eye on that. Viper, nerfing the passive a little bit. I think this is really strong, and it used to work on illusions as well. So the illusions are being reduced, how much damage they do. The damage per missing health is being reduced a little bit, though your 20 talent is actually going to give some of it back and a little bit more. It is at level 20 though. It's kind of far. But I do think this 15 talent, which is not that hard to get to for core Vipers, corrosive skin attack speed slow, I don't think it was that big a deal, like 20, but 15% poison attack slow and damage, that sounds better to me. So that might be a buff to like balance some of this stuff out. Very excited for the Weaver Hive Mind change. Geminate attack is no longer free, but when he had that, I actually tried both facets, and I really liked Hive Mind more than Skitter Step. So now that Hive Mind is being buffed quite a lot, from like 10 at max level up to 14, that's a 40% buff. I like that a lot. But you do need to spend 1 level into Geminate Attack now. I haven't gotten to explore it yet. He just wasn't available to me in the games I played. I'm going to try it. I'm very excited for Hive Mind Weaver because I used to get a good amount of XP when I was trying it before, and now it's even better. So very excited. I will let you guys know how it goes. All right, that's all I got. Let me know if you think I missed anything down in the comments. Would love to hear it. I will make follow-up videos for anyone that does end up popping off. I will see you in one of those.